It's Jay from ASMR for Nerds. Alright, so today we are back with our comic shop series, and there's a whole lot to go through. I'm not going to go through all of it today because I have a ton of things I haven't done with you guys yet. So we're not going to get to all of that, but what I did was I picked some important issues that came out recently on top of just like some random ones, that I've been enjoying, and some that are a little different from what I've showed you before, I think. The reason why these are the two main in the thumbnail photo, and the first two we're going to do is because these are the two things people are talking about the most in comics right now. So I wanted to fill you guys in if you're not part of the comic book universe. So I'm going to put this aside for now. You know what? No. We're going to do this first. I need to address this. So, for those of you who did not know, in comics, Steve Rogers, who is your normal, everyday Captain America, the one you guys know from the movie and from history, that Captain America just got, I forgot what it was because I wasn't reading Captain America at the time. He basically lost his youth. Captain America is able to stay young because he was brought back to life in modern times. This past year, as Steve Rogers was, old man Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson, who is normally the character Falcon, became the new Captain America. And that series has been written by Nick Spencer also, who wrote this, and has been, so far, honestly, my favorite Captain America story arc since ever. Although I'm not a very big Captain America fan, Sam Wilson Captain America was excellent, so I'm going to continue reading Nick Spencer's Captain America, and I'm kind of warming up to the whole character. Now, Captain America has been returned to his youthful state by a sentient cosmic cube. For those of you who are familiar with the Marvel Universe, the cosmic cube was like the original Infinity Gauntlet. Just like if you held that, you held all the power of the universe. So that was what Thanos was after before the Infinity Gauntlet, and his plans were thwarted by Captain Marvel, and that's what originally killed Thanos first. Now, anyway, this is the first issue. Now that Captain America is young again, they gave him his own series again. So now there's Steve Rogers Captain America, and there's Sam Wilson Captain America. And they play with these themes of the two Captain Americas. Of course, Sam Wilson has Steve Rogers' blessing, but America doesn't love it. A lot of people don't like Sam Wilson, and Nick Spencer does a great job of incorporating some racial issues into that. Some people saying he's not my Captain America, and although it isn't pointed out, there is the implication, and it's I'd say it's topical for now with the whole Barack Obama is not my president. The kind of people who say that. Say what you will about him, good or bad, it shouldn't matter his race, obviously. Anyway, so let's flip this open, and you'll see why people are talking about this book so much so that it's in mainstream media a bit. So you likely have heard about it if you are interested in comic books at all. So now that Captain America is young again, like I said, him and Sam Wilson are both carrying the shield as Captain America. So this issue has some of these flashbacks, which you see here, of Captain America's youth. And it shows his mom being hit. And he's witness to it. And this woman shows up and offers her, this woman right here, offers her to basically come to a meeting and, empower herself with this group called Hydra. At the time, they weren't known to be bad. So not much is given to you here in this issue other than they're showing you how Red Skull manipulates his followers. And Captain America kind of reinserting himself. Into his world. And then there's more flashbacks here of his mom, of Steve Rogers, Captain America's mom. Back in time. Going to a Hydra meeting and having some interest in joining. However, at that time, they did not bill themselves as like a crime syndicate. They were basically just saying they're community organizers, frustrated with, here it says, secret meeting, the New York chapter, the Hydra Society. Concerned citizens welcome. So, after they reveal that Captain America's mom is interested in Hydra in their early stages, a flash to the present where Captain America was fighting some bad guys with Jack Flag, who's kind of a fringe Captain America old sidekick guy. And it has Captain America throwing him out of a plane. And the next scene says, "Hail Hydra." Now this is what got people going crazy. In the comic book world, people were saying Captain America would never hail Hydra. This is not the Captain America that we know. They're calling for Nick Spencer to quit, all that. Now that's started to bother me because, first of all, this is one issue. You have to see where the writer is going to take the story. Now, I thought it was extremely unlikely that Captain America was actually part of Hydra, but I was kind of interested to see where Nick Spencer was going to go with this. I did read issue number 2 now, and I'm not going to give you guys the spoilers because it was so good. Number 2 was so good, and it dealt with this. Some explanation. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other, but now is a great time to pick up Captain America. Although you will hear terrible reviews about this issue, it's only because of that reveal at the end. Nick Spencer knew exactly what he was doing, and issue 2 shows that. So Captain America number 1 is definitely something I suggest. Do not listen to the media or the message boards. Unless you want to, it's fine. Next, we have DC Universe's Rebirth. This came out a couple of weeks ago, so we're a little behind, but for those of you who don't know, DC Comics have rebooted their whole universe with all of their characters. The way this issue is explaining basically how they're coming back to kind of the classic Superman and Batman, at least, which I love. We're gonna take a look at an Action Comics, no, not number 1, number 958 in a bit, and you'll understand why it's 958 when we get to it. I'll explain it, but DC's universe has been rebooted, so the new 52 is officially over. Many people will be happy about that. I have mixed feelings, but generally I am happy about it. So this issue basically is a primer for all of the other Rebirth titles that come out. Kind of giving you how did we get here, where are we at? And the main character in this is Wally West, the old Kid Flash. He is stuck in the Speed Force, which is, if you don't read Flash, it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of like this extra dimensional plane where they could travel through time, and I don't know, it's all weird, but Wally West is stuck in the Speed Force, where he is basically from a different timeline, and he's coming to the current DC timeline and telling them, you guys forgot everything, and basically saying the new 52 is not reality, and this is where we were, kind of bringing it back to the pre-New 52 era. Although it sounds like you need a lot of backstory, you don't. You could pick up this Rebirth issue and kind of get a feel for where DC is going, and then you could pick up all of or any of the DC Rebirth titles that they rebooted now. And you won't have to worry too much about backtracking. So now is a really good time to get into comics if you're into DC. I would say Marvel and DC kind of have very different identities right now. And although people like to choose one or the other, I love having them both. I think it's clear that DC is going for more of a classic superhero universe, which I love, especially one that's led by Superman. And Marvel is kind of doing a bit more of your modern, topical. Some of the books are kind of hip and cool, but it's done. They're doing a great job too. So this Rebirth launch has done wonders for DC's sales. People are the reviews are coming in really good, and people are just really into the Rebirth titles. I think especially fans of Batman and Superman, and even more so, the Watchmen are back as part of DC continuity. So there's a ton of titles here that are getting rebooted that you could jump right into. You have Titans, number 1. The Flash. Teen Titans. Batman. Green Arrow. Green Lanterns. Wonder Woman. Aquaman. Action Comics. Suicide Squad. And Superman. You also have Detective Comics and a bunch of others as well. Okay, so next is Black Widow. Now I've been waiting, this is issue number 4, and I've been, after reading issue 1 and 2, I was kind of on the fence, because as I've said before, Chris Samney and Mark Waid are my favorite comic creators out now, working together. So I had very high hopes for this book, and it started off mostly as an action book, but now it's starting to really get into Natasha, or Black Widow's past in Russia. She has a past of abuse, of sort of being quasi-kidnapped by a woman who trains young girls to be young orphans, to be like perfect assassins. So that's where she got her training. Now this book has her, by this issue, she's in Russia and kind of confronting old foes. And they kind of tell this story without too many words. So those of you who are into like graphic intensive books, without so much dialogue, this would be a great one to pick up. And Chris Samney's art is great, as usual. So that's Black Widow number 4. I do recommend it, but there's more out there too. Now this is a book I absolutely recommend. It's on number 8. I believe I've shown you guys a couple of these, but it's just staying up there. This is a Valiant title called The Wrath of the Eternal Warrior. And right now it's in a story arc called Labyrinth. So, the Eternal Warrior in the Valiant universe is basically this human being, who the Earth made to be its protector. So he's immortal, and every time he dies, he goes to this purgatory where all of his dead family members are, and he gets to be a father and husband for a short amount of time until Earth needs him again. So, in this story arc, Gilad is his name, finds himself, when he comes back to life, stuck in a labyrinth built. He finds himself stuck in a labyrinth built to basically kill him. And there's this doctor who has basically captured him. And every time he comes back to life, he puts him through this labyrinth and finds a new way to kill him. And every time studies his body to see if he could find out what's making him immortal. So he keeps getting sent back to his purgatory with his family, but he keeps running back because he wants to defeat this labyrinth. See, every time he does, he gets killed a different way, and he's running back, killed a different way. See, it's just every way that you could die. So, this is a testament to Gilad's his dedication until he figures out one way to fight back using his connection with the underworld, bringing in a demon. And that's all I'll tell you guys for now, but Eternal Warrior, this is one I would grab the trade paperback and give a read through. You don't need to know much about the character to start it on number 1. However, if you want a good primer, you could read the 4-issue story arc event called The Valiant of Valiant Comics. I believe it was 2014 or 15 that happened. Okay, so we're on to Action Comics number 958. Now, why is it 958 if New 52 only went up to number 51 or 52? 52. That is because after the New 52, that Superman had died. And this Superman, who is the original he's back. The Convergence event that happened late last year kind of set that up where the young New 52 Superman was in the same universe as the original Superman. And for a while, the older original Superman was kind of staying back and not getting involved, and he had a kid with Lois, and that kid is actually Superboy now. So instead of rebooting Superman Action Comics as #1, they went with the original continuity and started off where they left off with 958. I love that. And this one, which I really love what they're doing now with Superman. It's the first time I love what they're doing in a while. They have Doomsday back, and Lex Luthor built himself a Superman suit in the absence of the other Superman. So now he's claiming to be Superman, and this guy who people aren't sure if he's the real Superman because the one they knew died. So there's this struggle between this Superman and Lex Luthor as who's going to be the next Superman, kind of. All the while, Doomsday is back, and he's the first one this new Superman has to prove himself by fighting. So they're getting right into it. They're not wasting any time. And it's just been great. The 3 Superman titles since Rebirth have all been great. Reviews have said they're pretty good, but I think they're way better than the reviews are saying. Here you have Superman's son really just starting to learn how to fly, while he sees his dad having trouble fighting Doomsday. And this Lois remembers when Doomsday originally killed him, so there's all these elements of fear and vulnerability, and it's just so well done. So this is Dan Jurgens also, who wrote this, who was a DC writer in the 90s, who famously wrote The Death of Superman. So he's back, and clearly hasn't lost. Okay, so next is the Batman Detective Comics number 935. Now this is the same story as with Action Comics. They're just continuing where they left off before New 52. I am not the world's biggest Batman fan, although I do like him. But I really like this. So what's going on is Batwoman is training a bunch of younger superheroes to kind of help out Batman. And this is exactly what the title suggests. Batman is back to kind of like detective stories. There's a mystery, and they drop clues, and it's your classic Batman detective story, which I love. And I'm going to continue reading this one because this issue is really well done. Heavy on the dialogue, but none of it feels like overkill. I'm also looking forward to Nightwing here, although I never loved the character. Tim Seeley is a great writer, so I'm definitely going to pick that up. I also really like the Batman look now with the yellow outline bat and kind of the purplish blue tones. It's kind of classic with a little modern feel, but favorite other than the Superman ones. Highly recommend this. This is a great one to start off with because it does give some of her origin. For those of you, it's surprising how many people don't really know Wonder Woman's origin. For how long she's been around and her significance in the DC universe and just in culture as a whole. So these books will give you a little bit. So the short of it is, Wonder Woman's mom claims that she was made out of clay, that she was laying on the beach, sad, that she could not have a child, and she prayed to the gods for one. And then the ball of clay in her hands turned into a baby. So, what's going on here is just Wonder Woman is looking for someone who's terrorizing this village. And there's not much story to this, but it's setting up the story, but just done well. It's a build-up issue, but it's good. Where I read it, and I definitely want to see what happens next. So, based off of that, I would recommend it. Next is this is the last issue of the Bill and Ted Go to Hell story. It's issue 4 of 4. And as a Bill and Ted fan, I loved this. I didn't love their last story, the Bill and Ted's Most Triumphant Return, I believe it was called. This one is kind of playing on themes from the Bill and Ted Bogus Journey movie, where they go to hell, which I think is a great movie. So you have all your characters from it. You have the characters from history, from the first movie, and then you have the characters from Heaven and Hell, and like Station and Death. And this story just gets really weird, and at one point, just everyone from both Bill and Ted movies are in this big fight. It kind of feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, but for teenagers maybe. There's a quote from the movie. Dude, what? Hell sucks. Definitely. Next. This is a great story arc, and this is the second of after they started it over. So they had the Valiant had Divinity 1 through 4, I believe, and they started it over with Divinity 2, and now this is number 2. I think they're up to number 3 or 4 now. So, this is done really well. I'm going to read it to you since it's kind of confusing. At the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union, determined to win the space race at any cost, greenlit a dangerously advanced mission. It sent 3 cosmonauts further into space than anyone before. Lost in the stars, they encountered something unknown. Abram Adams, one of the 3, came into contact with it. The unknown changed him and gave him the ability to bend matter, space, and even time to his will. He became Divinity. He returned to Earth, where he was viewed as a threat and was ultimately imprisoned by MI6 and the forces of the West. Abram abandoned his 2 co-pilots in space. One of them, Mishka, has now also returned to Earth. An orphan haunted by a childhood spent on the streets of Moscow, she has returned to modern-day Russia and is appalled by what she sees. Also imbued with incredible powers, Mishka is determined to return Russia to its former glory. So basically, you have these two cosmonauts who went out to space and basically just got these godlike powers from this strange planet and returned to Earth. And both have their different sort of agendas. The Valiant universe is involved here. They kind of have a side part, not a huge part, but... So the first Divinity, Abram, is kind of the good guy. See, as he's flying by a tank, he simply dismantles it without even stopping. So they're like godlike creatures who could travel through time, as they do in this issue. They kind of have a fight through timelines. And they use their psychic abilities against each other and all kinds of stuff. So basically they're struggling for power, but there's a lot of elements of flashbacks to difficult childhoods and stuff like that. So it tackles a bunch of issues all at once. And it all under the umbrella of a sort of Russia versus America conflict. Next is an IDW comic called Hot Damn. This is issue number 1. And this was a lot of fun. It's kind of a more of an adult theme. Basically this character is in hell. And this is kind of a different take on hell. Kind of a funnier take. Where you have to go to a therapy group, and basically if you make it through the therapy, you might get to become a demon yourself. So it's basically saying like you come to terms with what you've done on Earth and suffer in hell. And there's like bureaucracy in hell and different levels of people have jobs, and it's kind of weird. But I thought it was really great. At one point, he meets someone and they go back to Earth and kind of haunt people and possess bodies of drunk, crazy people. I don't know, it's really weird, but for those of you looking for something different, kind of offbeat, a little more adult themed, check out Hot Damn. I think it might be on issue 2 or 3 now, so it's not too far in. Next, I think I've shown you guys this before, but they started it again as a number 1. It was the Big Bang, I believe, and now it's the Biggest Bang. Or the Bigger Bang, sorry. Basically, this character, Cosmos is his name, was in the universe we currently live in. When the universe we live in was basically destroyed, he was the byproduct of the destruction. And when our universe was destroyed and he was the only thing left, he found himself in a totally different universe. But he had these godlike, Superman-like powers. And because of that, all of the planets that knew about him feared him, thinking he was the one who destroyed his old universe, when really that wasn't necessarily the case. But as the story went on, some planets started to worship him. And he met this woman who he shared half of his powers with. So that's where this one starts off. After the last conflict, where now there are 2 half-godlike beings, and Cosmos has to kind of do what he does and get used to the fact that he's not as powerful. art is really different and kind of got that scribbly, imperfect look, but I like it a lot. For those of you who are into like almost like Adult Swim sort of feeling, sci-fi, I would definitely recommend this. Next is Marvel's Nighthawk. Now, I didn't read about this one coming out. There wasn't much buzz about it as far as I knew. But it came out, and as usual, I'll give it a try if it comes out. And this, I really like this one. So I didn't know much about the Nighthawk character. But basically, here, I'll read it to you. The sole survivor of a world-destroying cataclysm, Raymond Kane finds himself on an Earth much like the one he came from, perhaps a bit worse. Patrolling the streets of Chicago as a vigilante Nighthawk, Kane battles crime, corruption, and injustice in a city plagued with escalating racial tension. Feared by criminals, hated by the police, Nighthawk will save the city from itself, even if he must destroy everything in his path. So, Nighthawk basically is dealing with in these first couple of issues, is dealing with the tension, the racial tension between police and the black community. And it's done in a great way. It basically outlines some of the police brutality situations and corruption and cover-ups. And Nighthawk is kind of this vigilante that seeks out those who are committing those sorts of crimes. So if anyone is interested in that sort of topic that is something that's being talked about in the news and out in the world lately, this would be a great book to check out. There's some violence in it, so if that's your thing, definitely check it out. But there's a lot of sort of revenge elements, and I don't know, it's really good. So I'm definitely going to keep picking that up. Next is another indie called Amazing Forest. I've showed you guys a couple of these before, and they continue to be excellent. They're collections of different short stories written by the same team of guys who used to write on Judge Dredd. And what they do is they have different artists each time. So each short story has a different look, and with the same writers, but they have a lot of great little stories to tell, and I look forward to reading these every time I see one out. It's either kind of weird and a lot of sci-fi, and I guess with emotional elements. Kind of dark and funny, I guess. Some violence. This is a great alternative to what you're used to with Marvel and DC. So I highly recommend these Amazing Forest short story collections. Next, let's get into this a bit. The Marvel Civil War story arc going on right now, which to me feels uninspired. It feels a bit rushed, and for some reason the importance doesn't seem anything where like the first one. So I don't know if that's just because the first one was done so well. But in this Civil War, basically, Captain Marvel, and Iron Man are at odds. And this time, it is over an Inhuman named Ulysses who can tell the future. Now, Captain Marvel thinks that it's okay to use Ulysses to basically pull a Minority Report situation where you can know before people commit crimes and bad guys attack and stop them before that happens. Now, Tony Stark is actually very much against that, saying that it's not okay to prosecute people before they commit their actions. So that's the big disagreement. And there's a situation where Captain Marvel makes a decision and a somewhat important character in the Marvel Universe gets murdered in battle because of that decision, sparking this civil war. If you guys are into Marvel, the whole Marvel Universe, I'd say this is important to read. So far it's been okay, but not as compelling as a huge event like this should be. But, what could you say? It was obviously timed and written to sell comics. I mean, they all are, but that one even more so. It was a marketing ploy coming out at the same time as the Civil War movie, so keep that in mind. Speaking of marketing ploys, I don't want to sound bitter, but we're on to Daredevil number 8 by Charles Soule after the reboot he got. And I like it less and less every issue. And although Daredevil is one of my favorite comic book heroes, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I might stop reading his title. It's just not interesting to me at all. The colors are bland. The story is overly serious and bland also. It doesn't feel important. It doesn't feel like I'm learning anything about the character. It just doesn't do it for me. So I think after this issue, number 8, I am going to stop until maybe a new writer comes on board. The art is okay, but not good enough to carry the story, I think. So I know a lot of people are enjoying this, so if you are, that is great. Okay, so next is a series I've really been into. I really got into Moon Knight with Warren Ellis's run, which I read to you guys, and I hope you liked that one. This is Jeff Lemire's take on the character, and it kind of has the same dark, ominous feel, but a unique take on the character. There's a lot of play with mental instability with the Moon Knight character, as if maybe it's all in his head. And Jeff Lemire here is really running with that. The Moon Knight character, his name is Mark Spector, is in this mental institution who he sees as kind of just they're trapping him and trying to brainwash him to get rid of the Moon Knight superhero, but he's also encountering all this weird stuff that is bringing him back to his origin in Egypt, where he was supposedly possessed by the deity Khonshu. is what is the thing that gives Moon Knight his powers. So, in this issue, Moon Knight escapes with some of the other, I guess, crazy inmates. And some of them see what he's seeing, and some of them don't. So you really don't know what's real. It's just a really good, different take on a superhero. So, Moon Knight number 3. Highly recommend this. Next is everyone's favorite these days, The Vision. This is, I'd say the most highly reviewed book out now. And for rightly so. It's a great story and extremely well written, and the art is very fitting. It's Vision, who is a android, has an android family, and this issue kind of gives us a little backstory as to how that family was created for him to kind of have a normal life. So, in his attempts to make a normal life, earlier in this series there is an issue where his wife killed a villain and they are covering it up. And that caused all kinds of complications, and there's paranoia that people know that happened, and it's putting stress on the family. I don't know, it's just so good. Even if you're not into comic books, this is kind of one of those comics that is just good as a standalone story. So, I would definitely check this out if you haven't yet. The Vision. Lastly, I'm going to show you guys this book, Renato Jones, The 1%. Now, I don't know what your personal politics are, of course. I'm sure everyone's are different. I try not to get into mine. But without saying much, I loved this book. It's basically a vigilante who grew up poor, but then was kind of brought into this very rich situation. So he had this juxtaposed sort of view on poor and rich and greed and whatnot. So as a rich person, he didn't feel right being a super rich person. So as he grew up, he decided to basically assimilate himself with the rich people culture and see all the depraved things they do. And then once he gains their trust, he kills them. In quite dramatic fashion, too. And it's kind of a dark story. Definitely not for kids. Like in this issue, he goes to this really fancy rich people party and asks like where the good stuff is. And the greasy rich weirdo shows him in the basement. They have all these kids. And he's sickened. And he kills them all. Not the kids, of course. Everyone but the kids. Letting the kids go. They do kind of take jabs at, so you have Hillary there. And then Trump. And it's very topical. And if you're into the whole, I guess Bernie Sanders movement and want some vigilante vengeance stories along those lines, this is a great one. And there are no advertisements in it except these fake ones. wealth guilt. He'll be the judge of that. So it's just a really unique book out there now. And I think it's going to be one of those like cult hits. So it says created, written, drawn, colored, and owned by Kyle Andrews. Alright guys, that's it for today. Obviously that was not all the comics I've bought since I last showed you, but just a good taste of different kinds out there. We went through some of DC's Rebirth. I kept you guys up to speed with what's going on with Captain America since everyone's talking about it. And then we looked at some Batman, Superman, and Civil War, and some other stuff. So I think we did pretty good today. That's it for today. I will be back on very soon. So don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, guys. And that's it. So I'll see you later.